That was really easy. Hello, my fellow sorcerers, and welcome to Blizzard Ice Spikes version 2. And you are not ready. Okay, you probably are ready. You're just watching a build guide YouTube video. It's not like you're gonna get thrown out of your seat. Or will you? In any case, it is no secret that when it comes to pure single target melting damage, Blizzard Ice Spikes is reigning supreme for us sorcerers. That said, Frozen Orb, even Ball Lightning, which is on its way, is certainly not far behind, and they have advantages when it comes to pure mobbing. So I kind of wanted to widen the gap again, really cement Blizzard as that single target obliterator that honestly is going to be our premium pit pushing solution outside of Flame Shield cheese, as, you know, that is the most boring thing in the universe. So I have been hard at work tuning up the Ice Spikes build, and the results speak for themselves. I've effortlessly pushed to tier 95, it's not even been close, I've been completely fine survivability wise, in fact I've not been one-shot by a bullshit echo mechanic in any of these high tiers, which says a lot. This build ends up giving you nearly 50,000 effective health on top of all the DR, armor, resistances, etc. Which is ludicrous, and it does it without sacrificing damage. And the damage, you're going to be killing tier 92, 95, 100 pit bosses in only a couple minutes. Which is really sad to say in the face of what Necros are doing, but for a sorcerer, that is really freaking quickly. And I am really, really impressed and proud of this one. I remember in the previous Blizzard build guide, I said eventually there will reach a gear breakpoint where we can actually think about using a staff to double the strength of the Glacial Ice Spikes Affix. And that's kind of where we've got to. But it's not just stats, it also needed a solution to the massive loss of attack speed. Because it's all well and good your ice spikes at doing double damage if you're laying them down at like 25% speed. So we have fixed that through a little old-time technique that was quite popular in Season 3 that has worked wonders here. This is the thing that I mentioned in the most recent Frozen Orb upgrade build that I accidentally stumbled upon, and you would be seeing it soon. The soon is now, and the now is ultimate perfect Ice Spikes Blizzard. I could 100%, if I had the time to just sit down and grind it out, push this to 105, 110. It really is that comfortable, and the numbers are just there. You will see individual ice spikes explode for 5 million, and you know how fast ice spikes go off when you start layering. It really is quite special, especially considering how few raw, just pure damage increasing aspects the build can actually run. So, yeah, without further ado, if what you care about is killing big health targets as easily, quickly, and most importantly, as survivably as possible, this is the one. Of course, it performs beautifully in open world. You can comfortably solo Torment Duriel and Andariel, as you have seen with it, and generally you can push to your heart's content, and even if you don't want to push the pit, there will be no easier build to speed farm tier 61 for your tier 3 mats, obliterating the boss and getting your Masterworking to 12. So let's go through all the changes, new synergies, and new setup that has made this possible. You'll still tear through the trash on the way, and you will never feel more comfortable against pit bosses than you will with this. Alright, skill to the tree, yippee! That was awful, that was one of the worst ones yet. But that's okay, because it's on one of the best builds yet. Saved it! 2 points into Firebolt, so we can both move on to Core, and because it is one of our first enchantment slots, as yes, Ice Spikes does need the permanent burn from it to do, you know, massively more damage. Though we will be swapping our second enchantment slot from Frozen Orb, as you can see, no points in it. Over then to this section where we just want to do the minimum to move on. Elemental Dominance does nothing because we don't need damage from actual Blizzard itself, so the only choice is to max out Potent Warding to get that extra 3% resist, which does help to be fair, and then 1 point in Devastation to get to defensives. Then I have got Flame Shield. Now you don't need to put these 3 points in Flame Shield. I have done because I found it really helpful for pushing pit bosses and the ridiculous phantom attacks, but it is definitely your flexible 3 points. They can go anywhere you want, but I have left them here. Over to Enhanced and then Shimmering. When we have this much max health, healing for half of it actually is quite good, and we don't have anywhere else to put the points anyway. Then we want Teleport for all the sweet things Teleport does, and the DR. 3 out of 3 in Glass Cannon, it's free damage, why not take it? And then Elemental Attunement to reset our cooldowns, one of which is of course Ice Armor, to Enhanced and then Shimmering, so it has as low cooldown as possible, as with Ice Armor on, you literally are immortal. Over to Conjuration, where we actually get a fair bunch of stuff. Ice Blades over to Summoned, and this becomes our second enchantment slot. We do this to help with cooldown reduction from the Summoned, as we want to be able to use Flame Shield, Ice Armor, and Teleport as often as possible, and it also supplies us with an extra source of reliable vulnerable, having the blade swarming, and it gives us a reliable 2 to 5 stacks of Conjuration Mastery, and the movement is more crit, which is great, the damage is just more damage, which is great, and the mana regen, again, is really great. We will burn through mana in this build with the amount of attack speed we've packed in, so this just is really nice to have, and it's why we have Lightning Spear on the bar as well, just to force an extra stack of it. It still gives us a shield of protection. There isn't a better button to be there. And Target of Protection, yep, 3 out of 3, and then 3 out of 3 on your mana shield. Seeing it give nearly 7,000 health is just so nice. Over to Mastery, we want 3/3 in Icy Veil, so our barriers last longer. Your cooldowns will be a bit longer than playing Frozen Orb, because there's less Ice Blades, so we want to make sure we do permanently have a barrier, and this lets us do that. We only need 1 point in Blizzard, because the damage is not coming from the actual Blizzard dot itself, but from the Ice Spike summoned by the Aspict during it. It's a waste of 4 points to fill it out. Take it to Enhanced, and then Mages, so it's lasts as long as possible. Down here, get your Inner Flames, and then your Devouring Blaze for that lovely crit multiplier, and over to your passives here for Permafrost, Hoarfrost, and Icy Touch, the trio of hit things harder. And then we go over to our key passive, where yes, it's time for Esu's Ferocity. I wish I could also have Via's Mastery for the DR, but we are definitely tanky enough without it, and this solves the attack speed issue of the staff, and essentially lets us have our damage cake and eat it too. And by God, it's a tasty cake. That sounded cooler in my head. In any case, that's the skill tree. So when it comes to your gear, affixes, aspects, uniques, and all of that lovely stuff, make sure you have a two-handed staff. This is because we want glacials on it, so we get double damage ice spikes at the maximum 6,177. Moving on from there, you want to have conceited for that extra 25% multiplicative while you have a barrier, which will be nearly all of the time. And then on your gloves, you are going for Frozen Tundra, so we get that 50% increased explosion radius, so as many ice spikes as possible affect everything in the blizzard. It is a huge damage increase. And finally, on your necklace, this is where the Ancient Flame comes in. 75% attack speed on top of the staff. Yeah, that really is the best of both worlds. As an example, look how fast we cast it without it. 1, 2, 3. You know, it's nothing too crazy. Let's get our aspect online, and then it's 1, 2, 3. Like, oh my god, it's just genuinely phenomenal. So make sure that is on your amulet. Then, defensively, on your helmet, you want concentration, so that when we cast our lightning spear and our ice blades, we get that nice damage reduction, and that's all well and good. This can also be ever-living if you want it to be. Basically, it's up to you. Both are as good as each other, and and then Snow Guard on your chest, so you take 30% less damage in your blizzard, and make sure you always stand in your blizzard to actually take advantage of it. Create a little path for yourself before you move out. It really will let you tank some seriously punishing and even otherwise one-shotting attacks. Uniques-wise, we want our Tal Rashes, of course we do, lovely 4-stack, 60% multiplicative. I love this item, and that's the one thing I will never get tired of saying in every single build video. Over to our boots, where we want Esu's Heirloom. The more crit chance and damage we get, the better in this build, and the other affixes are pretty nice too. Tybalt's Will, again, for the mana refill every time we press teleport, so we can fully empty and then fill up. Same with Flame Shield, fully empty and then fill out. Use that to keep up your mana if you don't need them for, you know, the immune and the movement, and then the damage is nice too. That is it when it comes to uniques, unless you are rocking Uber uniques. I have been very fortunate in that I have only gotten 2 Uber uniques all season, and it's Shaco and Starless, which are really the only 2 that Sorcerer would want. If you do have these, then put on the helmet in Shaco, and that is fine, just a 1-to-1 swap. We don't need it, that's an improvement. And if you do have Starless, swap it out for the basic ring, give up Conceited and the affixes tempering there, and then you are all good. That is the ideal loadout. Affix-wise then, what you are looking for, well, it is fairly simple. You want maximum life, you want critical strike chance, you want attack speed, you want cooldown reduction. They are your core 4, and then specifically on your amulet at the top of the list, you want ranks of Devouring Blaze. Everything after that is less good, just generic damage and intelligence and those sorts of things. You want at least 1 mana per second affix going on ideally, and then on your chest specifically, you need a plus armor affix on top of a single % total armor temper, 1 of each, to reach the armor cap of 9,200. I don't have my skull in here because I'm at the armor cap without it anyway. It does tend to be a little bit of overkill, but without it you don't reach the cap, so always do 1 affix of armor and 1% total armor temper. And then when it comes to your gems, you can have either vulnerable damage or critical strike damage. Choose whichever you have less of, and then put 2 of those gems in. Skulls on your jewelry, and then health on your armor to get your health as high as possible. I am at 23 without Shaco on. When I get Shaco on, I'm up to 28, and when I finally get enough gem shards to make these the 9% version, I will actually get past 30,000 life, which is ridiculous considering our barriers scale off it. And of course, this greater life on the staff is really nice too. Yeah, very, very much go for that. And that is kind of that. When you're looking at your stats, of course, make sure that you are capped on all of your resistances, and if you're not, then swap out one of the healths for a pure intelligence gem until you are capped. Other than that, you want at least 40% crit, that goes up to 60 with Stalagmite on your Paragon, as much attack speed as you can get, as much critical strike damage as you can get, as much vulnerable damage as you can get, and then on the other end of things, you want a good amount of mana generation and a good amount of cooldown reduction. Ideally, I would have more here, but it's still a very, very solid set and will do you well. So, let's talk tempering. On your weapon slot for your staff specifically, you want a elemental surge of either poison or shadow to trigger the 4th stack of Tal Rashes, and then in the other offensive slot, you want Frost Finesse for ice spike damage, as you can see. When it comes to defensive, make sure you get that single % total armor somewhere, and then anywhere else, honestly, Flame Shield duration is going to do you really well. Then we get over to utility, where we want barrier generation. Where possible, it's very, very helpful, especially with this much health and therefore barriers. And then mobility, even though we don't, have access to that outside of the amulet, though we're not choosing it. Teleport cooldown or movement speed. And then finally, resource should be resource generation. On your necklace, the 2 choices are offensive ice spike damage, and then said resource generation. That does that, and when when it comes to your Masterworking, there's nothing specifically you have to hit, though hitting the Devouring Blaze on your necklace is particularly good. I kind of got unlucky here, but honestly, I'm not upset with the life. I like being really, really tanky. Then when it comes to how to play it, it's just Blizzard, right? You see a pack of enemies, you put a couple blizzards on them, and you move away. You see another pack, you put a couple blizzards on them, and you move away, and so on and so forth. Stay in your blizzard for the Snow Guard's damage reduction, and if you see a pack of elites, especially in High Pit, well, what you want to do is have Flame Shield off cooldown, teleport on top of them, use the Flame Shield duration to safely immune stack a load of blizzards, get them going, and then you can kind of dodge around in the outskirts of them, and then you will be fine. Use Lightning Spear and Ice Blades off cooldown every single time, same with Ice Armor. Honestly, save teleport for either mana when you need it, damage reduction when you need it, or pure movement when you need it, and then Flame Shield, save it for when you need to be immune to something nasty like a Pit Boss Echo attack, or you also just need the mana refill from your Tibalts. Other than that, it's very much straightforward. Just get as many blizzards down as possible and dodge attacks that are coming towards you. For your Paragon board then, stay with me point for point and let's do this thing. Initially head up left on the starter board to get resilience and the extra maximum life. We want as much life as we can get for pit pushing. If you don't care about pit pushing, then you can drop the extra life and spend these points elsewhere, and you can have less life affixes on your gear, but I have aimed this at actually getting somewhere in the pits as Sorceress, so that's why I have it. Then we head up right through Elementalist, getting that health as I said, over to the Glyph slot where we will get reinforced for that DI over barrier, which we always have. Activate it with the willpower provided, while getting Erudite, and then going up through Elemental Balance in order to reach Enchantment Master. We want it arranged in the usual way, head initially right to the Glyph, get Elemental Balance as you go, and the Glyph here is Elementalist. Activate it with the rest of the intelligence using Erudite, and then we can go over to the next board, but not before detouring left through these two intelligence, which will also activate Elementalist, and then curving round for more health, and then Elementalist. And again, this is primarily for the 4% maximum life, more than it is the non-physical damage, though of course both are good. Then we want to head right into Burning Instinct for that lovely burning synergy, initially all the way across up to the DR from Safeguard. Again, you don't need this one if you are not pushing the pit, so you can respend these points somewhere else, but I am of course pushing the pit. Then head down from the Strength, get yourself Cinders, and then go to the Glyph where we find Destruction, get every bit of Dexterity in the available radius, so that is powered up as much as possible, while also getting Smoldering Embers. Then head right from this Intelligence down into our next board, which is Frigid Fate. We want to make sure that this says 30%, the maximum 30% it can, and we achieve that fairly easily. Head straight down to the Glyph slot where we have Enchanter, giving us a massive amount of non-physical damage, which is what's doing this. If I unsocket this drops down to 23%. So Enchanter is hugely valuable here, on top of its own benefits. Head down to Chilling to activate it, and then we want to go through Weakness. At this dex, go round, get your Frigid Fate, continue on, head up for your Guarded, and then go right into your next board, which is Elemental Summoner. Arrange it so that Conjurer is in the top left here, go along to it, up through the Conjurer, and then into the Glyph where we have Stalagmite for that 20% crit chance on your Ice Spikes. Get it activated by also grabbing Erudite, and then head straight up and right through this Intelligence as it's needed to activate the Glyph, and off we go into the next board, which is just here to activate a Glyph with the Dexterity that we're passing through. It is Exploit for that lovely vulnerable damage, one extra dex here, and then we can just pass on to the next board, which is going to be your Searing Heat. This we want to head down to this Willpower right, grab this dex, then straight down through the 7 dex to the Fire Resist, and then over to Flame Feeder for that 10% multiplicative. Over straight right to this Willpower, then straight down to the final board, which is going to be, as you might imagine, our lovely Ice Nightfall board, grabbing Cryomancy along the way, and that is that. Very similar Paragon to Frozen Orb, because, you know, they're both ice-based crit builds, so there's not a huge amount of variance needed, and it really does get the job done. And talking of getting the job done, yeah, that is it. That is your upgraded staff version 2 Blizzard Ice Spikes for really pushing the pit, not dying with massive amounts of health, and doing actually solid damage for sorcerers in the bosses. So let me know if you've enjoyed it, let me know if you're going to use it, and I wish you all the best, and of course look forward to the next build where we're finally going to step away from the frosty side of things. Oh yes. For now though, like you've enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.